So your menopause experience started on your 36th birthday.
Yeah, the
What?
official diagnosis on my birthday. Really what you want.
So what were you experiencing that had taken you to find out what was going on?
So I'd had my child at 34, and about 18 months later, I started to experience just like hot flushes. I didn't feel well, constant headaches, lethargic, really tired all the time. It wasn't a case of lack of sleep. It was just a physical tiredness. I didn't know. And also my periods were all over the place, which to me was the biggest sign that something was wrong, because up until, having my child, I've never ever had any issues in that with relationship to periods ever.
Yeah.
So I sort of said to my husband jokingly, oh, I think I'm going through the menopause. And I said, I'm going to go see the GP. And I did. And she sort of laughed at me when I said it as well, because she was like, no, don't be silly. You're only 35. And I was like, yeah, of course. So she said, well, we'll test your hormone. She said, it's probably a thyroid. And I was like, okay, fine. So I had all these checks, and then of course went in for the follow-up. And she said, actually, your hormone levels, and I forget which ones they are. One was showing high and one was showing low, which led to the conclusion that it looked like it was menopausal. We my husband and I had been together an awful long time before we had our child, and we always thought we'd have a family, but we never really discussed what that family would entail, how big that family would be, anything like that. So we'd had our son, and then to me it was like, well, this is it, this is game over now. I don't have a choice to have any more family. So I was referred to a specialist at Adam Brooks Hospital in Cambridge, and I went to meet up with him. He ran some more tests. He didn't want to believe it either. And then I eventually went back for my follow-up checkup, which was on my 36th birthday with my husband, and we had a nice lunch planned. The child was in nursery. We're like, oh, we'll go out for a nice day. And then that was kind of the rubber stamp was, yeah, you're going through the menopause, and there's no turning back from it. And it was like, whoa, if I just felt like I'd been hit by a train, because suddenly, okay, we hadn't planned on how big our family was going to be, but then that choice had been taken away from me. It was suddenly like, oh, so this is it. It is just the three of us and the dog, and it was like,
Yeah.
right, okay. And that to me, I found was the hardest thing to come to terms with for quite
Yeah.
a while.
So with the symptoms you've been having, you were working at the time. Were you working in a small office or what kind of
Yeah,
place
so
were you working?
I still work in a small office.
Yeah.
They still got the same job, I'm pleased to say. So yeah, I work with two other women actually, and I realised that my moods were, really erratic. I was really irritable. I was very irritable at home with my child, which, in hindsight, just feel terrible about. My husband could deal with it, but you just think like everything was an
Yeah.
issue. And at work, yeah, I just felt, I wasn't really engaged the same with my colleagues. I found everything irritated me to beyond belief.
Had they noticed? Were they saying anything?
They didn't say anything. They were very good, and I think they were aware that obviously something wasn't quite right. And I hadn't said anything to them until I knew. And obviously I came back into work after having the day off on my birthday. Oh, did you have a nice day? And I was like, actually, no, I didn't, because I've just been told I'm going through the menopause. And they were like, oh my God, seriously? And they're both older than me, one of them a fair bit older than me, and neither of them had even had symptoms of the menopause. So
Yeah.
for me, being the youngest and 36 was like, whoa, this is like, I can't even talk to them, and we can't have common symptoms together. We can't go, oh, I'm having a hot flush. This is just really awful.
Yeah.
I was just felt a little bit alone, really.
Yeah.
Well, at least they're women. They can kind of sympathise with me, and I sort of apologised. I'm really sorry about all my irritability, and I hope it hasn't been an issue.
Yeah. So
Um,
what options did the doctor offer you for treatment?
so the doctor then basically suggested that I go on HRT, and he said, he was concerned because of my age, having a young child at the time, that his biggest concern was obviously the bone density. So when you go through menopause with the hormones, it affects your bones. And my mum suffers from osteoporosis, so I was obviously quite aware of that. My biggest concern, and also he said, going on the HRT would help with all the symptoms I was having. So I was having hot flushes at night. I would have them in the middle of a presentation at work, which was just the most off-putting thing, because I would be sitting there doing a presentation, and then all of a sudden I'm like dripping, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, and you almost feel like you're having a bit of a panic attack.
Yeah.
And I would just lose my train of thought like halfway through a presentation, and it's so unprofessional, isn't it? And that's all I kept thinking, was like, this is so wrong. So I kind of went off and I did a lot of research into HRT, and I realised that it came with a lot of health warnings, because you read all the stats and it says, oh, you go on HRT, you're going to get breast cancer, or you're going to get cancer of this, or it's not good for you, you shouldn't do it, you should try and not go on HRT. And it was really quite conflicting information, because there was at the time I couldn't find anything about really early menopause or anybody who was really helping anybody in early menopause. It boiled down. I think I actually went and spoke to my GP, who was just lovely. She's been really brilliant through all of this, because I obviously have to see her regularly. And she said, look, do you want to be running around in the park chasing your son and then you break your leg? And I said, well, no. She said, well, look at the stats, go back and look at, you've got to be satisfied you're happy. And when I looked at the kind of HRT stats, women who tend to take it tend to be older anyway. And when you look at women in older brackets, then that's when, sort of issues with cancer and things were arising. So the stats that you were looking at weren't actually necessarily related to those people taking HRT. There's a natural sort of increase in risk as you get older, and being a woman with cancers. So I just thought, what have I got to lose? I need to feel normal again, because I wasn't feeling normal, and I was struggling. I was really struggling. So.
And what sort of form of HRT? Were it patches or?
So I got given a tablet, and I was on it for about 3 months, and I was like, this is making no difference whatsoever. There was a mild effect, like my irritability I felt kind of lowered, which was great. And even my husband had commented on it. So I was like, okay, well, something's right here. But I was still really tired. I was still having headaches. I was still having hot sweats. I was still a bit panicky. I had this head fog that I just, I found concentrating at work really quite difficult. So I went back to my consultant, and I think he said, give it 3 months, to get it into your system and see how you are. And it gave it 3 months, and I went back and I said, this isn't working. And he said, okay. So then I think I saw a different consultant, and they changed my HRT to something else. And that did actually really start to help. And I did feel a much more of a difference, a much more of an instant difference, actually.
Yeah.
But I still wasn't right. I still felt like I had this bag of bones that I was carrying around, rather than actually, feeling fit and healthy. And I'd embarked on a program of physical fitness with my friend. She's a PT. And when I got my diagnosis, I phoned her up and I was like, this is what's happened. I was like, floods of tears. I need your help. You've got to sort me out. You must be able to do something for me. So we met up, and she said, yeah, look, let's have a look at it. And her expertise was really in postnatal ladies. So I was kind of like, I was on her radar, because, I'd not long had my son. But she hadn't actually started up, everything that she was doing. And then I threw this curveball at her, and she was kind of like, this is fine, we can deal with it. We set to with this sort of regime of exercise. I'd put on an awful lot of weight. I mean, that was something else that I'd noticed, that I just couldn't shift my weight at all. I think I lost about 2 stone. So I'd gone up to like a size 18. I got down to a size sort of 10, 12 in dresses again. Put on a bit more, but hey, I'm happy now. I'm fit and healthy, and I'm strong, and I wasn't before.
Did you have a problem with the hot flushes with the exercise?
I exercise outside, so I've always been a hot person anyway. So having hot flushes was just it was just awful, because I sweat, and then I was sweating even more, and I was dripping. And it's really not pleasant. And so the thought of working out indoors, getting really hot and sweaty, was just not appealing. But she was like, no, we're doing this outside. Regardless of the weather, we're going to go outside. And we did. And I had this routine, and she gave me a nutritional plan as well.
What did you change in your nutrition?
I just became much healthier in what I was eating. So I started being aware of my food intake, and making sure I was eating fruit and vegetables and protein. And because I was doing much more exercise, it was a case of balancing that diet really. So I started eating a lot more protein and a lot of green vegetables. And I kind of started on that, and I kind of still eat to that plan now.
Yeah. And in the workplace, how was your employer during all this?
Absolutely wonderful. I mean, I can't fault Jane. Jane and I work very closely together, and you know, I'm company director now as well. So we run the business together. But and she has subsequently, I think, been experiencing the perimenopause symptoms.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I was just honest with her, I think, and I think that's the hardest thing in a way, because I felt a bit like a failure, because I was like, I can't do my work anymore. I just, with this brain fog that I had, I really felt like I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I couldn't concentrate, and my concentration isn't best at the best of times, but I manage it. You know, I work on something, and if I find I'm wandering off, then I'll go do something else and I'll come back to it. But I just felt like I was doing it all the time. But Jane was fine with it. You know, she knew I was struggling, but I was getting my work done, you know, but I felt it wasn't quite right. And it wasn't until I saw a lady consultant at Adam Brooks, and she came and she said, "Oh, how are you doing?" I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." She said, "Oh, how's the HRT?" And I was like, "Well, you know, it's all right, you know." And I said, "I still don't feel like my old self, but I have to expect that, because it's you know, a synthetic hormone. It's not a natural thing." And she said, "This is rubbish." She looked at my details and she said, "Do you feel like you're a sack of bones? You're carrying around a sack of bones, and you're constantly tired, and you constantly have brain fog?" And I went, "Yes, I do. I do feel like that." And she just hit the nail on the head. And nobody had up until that point, like from the consultants, because I just go in and go, "Oh, I don't feel right. I'm so tired." And they were kind of like, "Yeah, whatever." And they'd all been men. Sorry, you know, they'd all been men. And I remember the male consultant I first saw said to me, "Oh, hot sweats. It's like when you get the hot flushes." He said, "Isn't it like when you've drunk too much red wine and gone to bed?" And I went, "Oh my God, no, it's not like that. It's not like that at all." And it was just like, oh, you know, and I felt I was on the losing foot then. But when I saw this lady, she just hit the nail on the head, and then she said, "Right, we're changing everything." And she did, and I can pretty much say now, I would say I feel 90% to 95% normal on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I hadn't had that feeling, and the brain fog's gone, the tiredness is gone, you know, the irritability is gone, and that now, hand in hand with the exercise I did my gym instructors so I could be qualified, because Maggie's business was starting to take off. And she teaches kettlebell, which is a form of kind of weight resisting exercise, which she put me on, because she said this will be brilliant for your bone density. And every year up until I think 4 years ago, I had a bone density scan every year, and they said that actually my bone density was improving. So they said, "We don't want to scan you every day now, every year now. You'll be scanned every 5 years unless we feel that there's an issue."
That's brilliant, because that resistance just stimulating the bones to keep growing.
Absolutely. And I do it outside. Even now, during this period of COVID and in lockdown, I'm in the garden. I don't very rarely do I do the workouts in the house.
One piece of advice you could give to women as they approach menopause, what would you say to them?
Sort of be a bit reflective on yourself and your lifestyle, and just have a think about. I'm quite hung up on sleep and sleep patterns, probably because I have a 10-year-old son who was just an awful sleeper. But I need my sleep, and I know that if I don't get my sleep, then I don't function very well. And I know that that's only going to get worse as I get older as well. So I'm quite aware that I quite like an afternoon nap now. So I will, and sometimes it's not, during the week, but it will be on a Saturday. If my boy's busy doing something and we're just at home, I will have a sleep. And I do think about what I'm eating and how much exercise I'm doing. So I'm a bit of a kettlebell fanatic now, and I will work out every morning. And I find I just get up early, get my workout in, and that gives me my headspace. I feel like I've done something for the day. So if I'm then sat at my desk for the rest of the day, then I don't mind. I think as we get older as women as well, or as anybody, as we get older, we need to stay fit and strong. And we do live longer now, don't we, than we ever have done. So I think it's having that balance of lifestyle, I guess, and it's having that quality. Having some me time is really important to me. Sleeping well, me time, eating well, exercise. And
it's a good formula. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and I think it really helps. And I know that if any one of those things drop, it affects me. And I think we forget about that times. And as mums and as working women, we just kind of get up and we just carry on, and we feel like we've got to do everything. At the moment my house is a complete state, but I've just got to leave it, because it's like it's not important at the moment. There's other things that need my attention. So
lovely. Thank you so much, Lesley. Thank you for sharing your story. It's really helpful, and I think you've painted such a picture of that journey that you've been on. So thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.